Shalom Havarim, James Trim here. I want to talk to you today about a passage that is in Scripture that is being misused. Anti-Semites just love to misuse this passage. It's found twice in the Scripture, in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, the reference to the Synagogue of Satan. And today we're going to talk about the reasons that this passage can't mean what the anti-Semites try and use it to mean, and we'll talk about what it really does mean. Now, this is an issue that is very near and dear to my heart, and someone actually reached out to me and asked me to make a video on this particular passage, and I think it's very important. As many of you know, my wife is the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. So this is an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. And over the last 2 years, we've witnessed the tragic consequences of rising anti-Semitic rhetoric turning into deadly violence. I want us to remember those who've recently, in these last 2 years, lost their lives because words of hatred elevated to horrific acts. In late 2023, Paul Kessler, Jewish man, Paul Kessler, was killed after a confrontation with a pro-Palestinian protester in California. Murdered right there in the street. Stark reminder that hateful rhetoric can turn deadly. In Boulder, Colorado, in June 2025, a Holocaust survivor who dared to participate in a demonstration supporting Israel, marching for Israel, was brutally murdered with a makeshift flamethrower in a hate-driven attack. What a terrible way to die, and to have survived the Holocaust only to be killed in the streets of America by an anti-Semite for daring to exercise your First Amendment rights in supporting Israel publicly. In May 2025, outside of all places, ironically, the Holocaust Museum at the Capitol in Washington, D.C., 2 Israeli embassy staffers, a young couple soon to be engaged, were shot and killed. Another horrifying consequence of unchecked hatred. We need to recognize that anti-Semitic hatred is not just words, it is costing lives. We need to stand together to confront and dismantle this kind of hatred before it claims more innocent people. If you want to know what you would have done if you were in Germany in the 1930s, it's whatever you're doing right now. Now, folks, I need to speak with you plainly and from the heart. Our rent is due tomorrow. And right now we have only about $50 to our names. Unless we can raise the support we need in the next 24 hours, we face the very real danger of homelessness. This has been an especially rough month. My wife, who I mentioned earlier, the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, she's chronically ill, suffers chronic pain, and is disabled. I'm her at-home caretaker. She has good days and she has bad days, but it's now been nearly a month since she's had what I would really call a good day. And on top of that, donations have been very low for several months, and it's left us in a painful place. At the same time, the work of this ministry has never been more important. Since the late 1980s, we've been on the cutting edge of restoring the faith of the original Jewish followers of Yeshua the Messiah and bringing back the Hebrew and Aramaic foundations of the New Testament. We've accomplished a great deal over the years, but there is still so much more to do. As America has secularized, donations have decreased, and the rise of anti-Semitism has only made the struggle harder. In years past, when support was low, I'm not proud. I'm not too proud. I'd take up warehouse jobs through temp agencies, do some manual labor, make ends meet. But unfortunately, as I approach 60 years old, with worsening problems with my legs and hips, I can no longer do that kind of work. I just can't. And more importantly, my wife, which, as I mentioned, she's disabled and lives with chronic pain. I'm her at-home caretaker. I really can't leave her unattended for long stretches. We've been building a future through publishing, and several of our books are doing well on Amazon, though the income isn't enough to sustain us yet. Still, I believe that is the way forward. I have 40 years worth of articles and research on my hard drive ready to be compiled into books. I'm something of a data hog, and whenever I upgrade a computer over the last 40 years, as the technology has changed or increased, I've transferred all of my data into the new computer. That used to be quite difficult, but it's actually fairly easy now. So some of the data I have over the last 40 years, some of the articles that I've written, literally were written on my Commodore 64 40 years ago. Some of them written on my 286, my 386, my 486, my first Windows computer, and so on down the line to the present day. I also have a number of books that we wrote back in the day, in the 1990s. We would write these little books and publish them at Kinko's. This one was done with tape bound. We have several that were published spiral bound, and a lot of those books I still have on my hard drive. They just need to be revised and published on Amazon in paperback and hardback. Also, like I said, I have so many of my articles that can be compiled together based on subject and turned into books. And we're working on doing that. And we have I think 12 books on Amazon, published on Amazon now. And the nice thing about this ability now to publish on Amazon is such a large audience. It's not niched into just a desktop publishing company. And then in the last 20 years, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, we published a number of books on a different on-demand publishing system, and I still have many of those books, the files on my hard drive. They can also be revised and put up on Amazon. So we're working on that process. The more books we have on Amazon, the more sales, and it just scales up. So I believe there's a future there. I think that is the future, publishing our research over the last 40 years. In fact, I just published 2 new books in the last few days. One is The Sabbath Revolution, the Sabbath Revolution book, which the full title is The Sabbath Revolution, God's Day of Rest in a Restless World. And then just today, went live The 42 Rules of Kabbalah, Unlocking the Mysteries of Torah, which has to do with the Sod level interpretation of the Torah. I'll make a whole video about that in a separate video. But we have 12 books that we've published on Amazon in recent weeks, and we can greatly increase that very rapidly because we have a lot of material ready to go. Within a few short months, publishing can become a stable base for us. The only challenge is that book sales take 2 months to pay out. So even if I had enough books ready tomorrow, it would take time before those sales would reach us. That's why your help now is critical. We are treading water, holding on as best we can until the books provide stability. But all of this falls apart if we can't make the rent tomorrow. I can't keep putting out these books, for example, as well as doing just the great work of this ministry if I'm homeless. If I don't have the study with my books available to work from, if I don't even really just have a stable place to work. And of course, care for my wife. She just can't be homeless. I mean, so we need your help. Like I said, we're treading water. We're holding on as best we can. If you're able, please consider making a donation today. Every gift, large or small, will help. And perhaps someone out there hearing this right now might be able to make a one-time donation of $500 or $1,000 or even more to help carry us through this urgent need. We've carried this work faithfully for decades, and I believe that with your help, we can not only survive this crisis, but also flourish in the months ahead as our publishing efforts grow. From my heart, thank you for standing with us. You can donate by PayPal, by sending donations by PayPal to donations at wnae.org. That's donations at wnae.org, or you can click on the donate link in the video description. Okay, now let's talk about this passage that's found twice in the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. And the anti-Semites just love to use these two passages. However, if they would actually read the scriptures, they wouldn't, because if you actually read the scriptures, you'll find that they can't mean what the anti-Semites try to use them to mean. So let's start by, first of all, it's important to recognize that the same John, or same Yochanan, that was his Hebrew name, wrote both the book of Revelation and the Gospel of Yochanan, or the Gospel of John. Not only is this the traditional understanding, but there are a number of common elements that are unique to both books that make clear that they have the word print of that author, that the same author wrote both books. For example, both books identify the Messiah as the Lamb. In the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 29, John identifies the Messiah as the Lamb, both John, the author of the book, and John the Baptist in the narrative. In Revelation, the book of Revelation, several times the Messiah is identified as the Lamb. In Revelation chapter 5, verses 6, 8, 12, and in Revelation chapter 14, verse 1. In both books, the Messiah is identified as the incarnate Word. John, the Gospel of John, chapter 1, famously in verses 1 through 3 and verse 14, identifies the Messiah as the Word. but also in the book of Revelation, chapter 19, verse 13. Both of these authors also, I say both of these authors is the same author, both of these books also refer to the living waters in the Gospel of John twice, in John chapter 4, verse 10, in John chapter 7, verse 38, and also in Revelation, the book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 1. Now, it is true that the Gospel of John uses different Greek words for or phrases for lamb and living waters than the book of Revelation in the Greek version of Revelation. But this is only in the Greek. In Hebrew and in Aramaic, the words are the same, and in fact, this is just a small line of evidence that points to the Hebrew and Aramaic origins of these books of the New Testament. Clearly, the book of John, the Gospel of John, and the Revelation of John were written by the same author, the same Yochanan or John. That's important as we proceed forward. So let's just, establish that, and now we move on. We must look at how Yochanan uses the word Jew in his own writings. Yochanan himself, in the Gospel of John, frequently invokes the term Jews to refer to Jewish people who rejected Yeshua as the Messiah. For example, John chapter 5, verse 16, therefore did the Jews persecute Yeshua. John chapter 5, verse 18, the Jews sought more to kill him. John chapter 6, verse 41, the Jews then murmured at him. And John chapter 7, verse 1, the Jews sought to kill him. That's just in chapters 5 through 7. There's more. Now, it may be that Yochanan uses the term Jew to, the Hebrew is Yehudim, Jews, to refer to the Judeans, not all Jews, obviously, but here he refers to Jews clearly in context. These are Jews that did not believe Yeshua was the Messiah, and Yochanan has no issue at all himself calling those Jews, calling those non-believers Jews. So, clearly, let's just be logical here. I know that's difficult for anti-Semites, but let's be logical here. Yochanan has absolutely no objection to using the term Jews to refer to either Jews who accept Yeshua as the Messiah or those that rejected him as the Messiah. That's clear from the Gospel of John. Therefore, the statement in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 and chapter 3, verse 9 cannot be criticizing the usage of the word Jews, because the one thing that it tells us about this Synagogue of Satan is that they claim to be Jews and are not. Otherwise, Yochanan would be criticizing himself, his own inspired writing in the Gospel of John, in which he, by inspiration, does exactly that himself frequently. So, the one thing we know is that the Synagogue of Satan cannot be actual Jews, because in both passages, Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9, we're told that they claim to be Jews but are not Jews. It cannot be talking about Jews that don't accept Yeshua as the Messiah as not being true Jews because they don't accept Yeshua as the Messiah, because John himself uses the term Jews to refer to Jews that didn't accept Yeshua as the Messiah frequently in the Gospel of John. He cannot be including himself in his criticism of those that he calls the Synagogue of Satan in their usage of the word Jew improperly. So, what does the passage really mean? It can't mean, this is the most important thing, it can't mean what anti-Semites try to make it mean. Their usage cannot be correct, and they would know it cannot be correct if they actually studied the scriptures and looked at how John himself uses the word Jew. It's obvious. Okay, it's self-evident. It's not brain surgery or rocket science or anything. It's really simple. Okay. So, what does it mean when it refers to the synagogue of Satan being those who claim they are Jews and are not? I think that it is referring to what we call replacement theology, a branch of Christianity, a breed of Christian that claims to be the replacement Israel, the new Israel in place of the old Israel to replace the Jewish people. I think that is what it's referring to. It is a criticism of replacement theology. Now, you may not agree with me on that. That's fine. Maybe offer a different interpretation. But what it cannot mean is the one group of people that cannot possibly be the synagogue of Satan are Jewish people. It has to be referring to some group of Gentiles who claim to be Jews despite the fact that they're not. Okay? Again, in closing, I just want to remind everybody to please, and I didn't even have time in this video, let me ask you to please, first of all, like our video, click the notification bell, or subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. Leave a comment in the comments section. That's really helpful for the YouTube algorithm. And participate in the discussions in the comments. And share this video with your friends. And please donate. As I said, we have a very special need in the next 24 hours to try and meet our rent, which is absolutely essential. So if you can possibly make a donation, please do so. You can click on the donate link in the video description. Also, the 11 or 12 books that we have published, I will put a link to some of the, well, I will at a later date. I don't have time today, but I'll be putting a link, I'll add a link to those books maybe later today. But keep an eye on that, and I'll put that in there. Okay? So until next time, everybody, shalom.